Well, let's go to the next topic then. There's this rumor that the Niners are going to bring in a new personnel guy, not
Thank
necessarily a new
God.
general manager, but a
Yeah.
new personnel guy who would sort of be in charge of scouting and
The
picking players
personnel.
and would
Yeah.
kind of bump personnel, like kind of bump Lynch out of there and maybe bump Kyle Shanahan out of there too, and his dad. Like he would be in charge of the whole thing. It would be a big departure because the way I look at it is since 2017, this has been the Kyle Shanahan production as narrated by John Lynch. John Lynch isn't making any major decisions unless Kyle Shanahan tells him to. Kyle makes the decisions and no one really knows. And the Niners had to give him that power because they were the freaking Raiders 10 years ago. Now they're not. They're a good organization and they've
Yeah.
had awful drafts 5 years in a row. And to me, if you bring in a new personnel guy, that is a bit of a demotion for Kyle Shanahan, which brings us back to a previous topic. Is it possible he might not want to stay here long term? If they bring in a new personnel guy, what do you think that means for the organization?
I think again they're leaning towards, in my opinion, the Niners want to rebuild with Kyle. I don't know how Kyle feels, but I think the 49ers want to get rid of John. Because here's my thing, and this is why I don't say it's always 100% on Kyle. Because if you look at Adam Peters or Kwesi, two guys that have come out from under John's like tree, so to speak, they're both horrible and they both draft like John. So I don't think it's as 100% Kyle as like we think. I think definitely Kyle has like decision making power, but I think John and his scouting department and his like GM is like, well, Kyle, these are the guys that would fit. And then Kyle's picking out of that litter because he doesn't have the time to scout. He doesn't even go to the combine. So he is trusting these guys that are horrible. And then he's saying, well, I want this guy if I'm picking out of these guys. This guy looks the best. Like they kind of bring Kyle their final draft and Kyle goes over it like, okay, I'm watching the film on this guy. This guy's pretty good. But they're like not picking the best guys. And so I think this guy is basically going to replace John. This is where John's going to either promote to like president of football or whatever. And then this guy's going to promote to GM. And they're going to kind of let this guy run the draft and scouting at least. I don't know about completely run the draft, but I think like he's going to scout for Kyle instead of whoever the hell they have in the building.
Well, that would be a huge dynamic shift, and it would be interesting to see if Kyle would go along with it because Jed, who doesn't know as much as he thinks he does about running championship organizations, he keeps saying like what he learned from the Harbaugh Trent Baalke time is that you have to have those guys like on the same page, communicating well, borderline friends, and they need to be brought in at the same time. And so when they fired Harbaugh and kept Baalke, like he felt that was his mistake.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
And that ultimately he needed to get rid of Baalke too and bring in two guys at the same time. So I wonder if he would replace Lynch and keep Kyle, or if you're replacing Lynch, then you're already kind of replacing Kyle because Kyle wants to buy the groceries and prepare the meal at the same time. I don't know if he would necessarily take a back seat after all that, because again, he could leave the Niners and get that power somewhere else if he wanted it, or work for a personnel guy that he really respects.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's what they're trying to find, though, is they're trying to find a personnel guy that Kyle respects and will at least let, like, again, because I think Kyle has a decision-making power, but I think he's getting bad information. So he's scouting in a pile of, like, shit. And they're trying to bring in a guy that Kyle respects where he's like, okay, look at this. And he's like, this is a better pile of people for you to scout through. Here's where you should look. And then Kyle's going, oh, yeah, I like this guy. Okay, I'll sign an extension with this dude. Because I just feel like it's so easy to say it's just Kyle. But when I see Kwesi and Peters going off and being just as horrible as John, it's like, okay, it can't just be Kyle because this is like a systemic issue.
Yeah. And the Niners have had the same scouting department for like 15, 20 years, and it doesn't seem like they're doing that well anymore. They got to shake it up. They keep promoting from within. It's beyond time for them to bring in some new blood, some new faces from a different organization, because the Niners keep acting like they have the answers internally. No, you freaking don't.
No, that's why when the Falcons were interviewing, like Josh Williams was like, why do you guys want our scouting department? They are horrible. They have not been good at anywhere they've gone. Adam Peters has been bad. Kwesi was bad. John's bad. You want to test a third time's the charm? Like,
There's more.
Yeah.
As Ron Carthon was another one.
I don't know. I think this new guy is just to kind of help scout. Like where John's like, oh, I like this guy out of Rutgers. And this guy's like, what? Bro, there's guys from Power 5 schools that are 10 times better than him. Let's scout this guy. And then Kyle will look at both like, yeah, he's right.
It's February 18th, though. I think if they're going to bring in a new personnel guy, they would have done it already. I mean, I would think that their draft board is damn near set. What
I
are they
don't
waiting
know.
for? It's
I have
kind of
no
scary to
idea.
think that the same exact front office is going to lead another free agency. This is the same front office that gave Luke Farrell $11 million
Yeah.
guaranteed over 3 years. Like, that was dumb.
This is why I think this is John's last year as GM. Maybe not as a Niner, because again, he's a really good face of the franchise. He's a really good talker to the media. So I could definitely see them promoting him to, again, like president of football. But I think this is his last year, like actually being GM, because he's horrible at finding talent. He's
John
horrible.
and Kyle have done some good things, but on their resume together, they're responsible for one of the worst trades in the history of the NFL.
Yep.
Yep. And one of the worst contracts in the history of the NFL.
I would argue you could say a couple of the worst contracts in the history of the NFL.
Well, Ayuk is for sure right now one of the worst contracts ever. Right, for sure.
I think
mean,
Debo's
we'll
also one of them.
Who?
Debo did nothing after his contract. That was awful. Javon
Well,
Hargrave
Ayuk did the definition of nothing after he got his contract. Yeah.
Javon Hargrave. That one's
man, some
another
bad ones.
Yeah. Letting
Some
go
bad
of
ones.
Buckner
But
for
Lance and
Armstead.
Ayuk are two of the worst moves in the history of moves.
Yeah, those are scary. Those are fireable offenses. And that's why I kept saying I don't understand how John Lynch has a job. Because literally, if we look at his span of GM since Cohn was GM, he is arguably worse than Cohn.
And to me, the Niners were just as the Niners were good last year because of like Eddie Pinheiro, Sky Moore, Robert Saleh, Kyle Shanahan, Mac Jones, and Brock Purdy. Like they were good in certain small areas.
Yeah.
They were awful everywhere else, and they had an easy schedule. And they got to face the self-destructing Eagles in the playoffs.
Yeah,
And then when they faced a good team.
I think that's also a big point. They also got saved by having such an easy schedule, which we said last year. They were going to win a lot of games, and everyone's like, oh my God, this team's so much better. And they just necessarily weren't.
I picked the Niners to win 7 games because I felt that they were going to have hella injury issues and not be able to overcome them. And they did have hella injury issues, but I didn't understand that Eddie Pinheiro was going to be the greatest kicker of all time and that Mac Jones was going to be that good. When I saw him when I saw him like early in the season, I kind of got it. But when I was snarkily picking 7-10 season, I was like, nah, man, Brock's getting hurt. They're going down. It's going to be a lot like 2024.
Do you think Sam Darnold winning a Super Bowl has like basically stamped the we shouldn't have signed Brock Purdy to this contract? Like, do you think that's probably why they're looking at a new personnel guy to bring in the front office? Because they're like, we are obviously doing something.
Let me ask you this.
Wrong.
Would the Seahawks have won the Super Bowl this year if they were paying Brock Purdy $53 million a year?
No.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Like, they're even going to be struggling to keep players with Sam's cheap contract.
Correct, which is getting more expensive this year.
Like,
I think that the Seahawks, not just winning a Super Bowl, but they don't look like a one-off team. They look like a team that's going to be right back there next year. They look like a potential dynasty because they're so young.
My prediction is they'll never go back. They're losing.
That's possible,
yeah.
But still, they're pretty well positioned. They're not an old team. They have most of their players coming back. Like, you're going to have to deal with them in the foreseeable future. And they have a very particular way of putting their team together. They don't have any big weaknesses. The teams that spend all this money on quarterbacks are like, what's okay? We can be mediocre on defense or mediocre in the trenches because we have the greatest quarterback. Seahawks don't play like that. Their worst player is their quarterback, and he's pretty good.
Yeah, I get, like, my thing is, like, they might lose Kenneth Walker, Tariq Woolen. Like, guys like that are pretty big. Those are pretty big holes to fill.
And they lost their OC,
solid. And they might lose Rashid Shaheed. But I was talking about this before. I said Seahawks winning the Super Bowl isn't going to be good for them because whenever players win the Super Bowl, unless, again, you have like a Patrick Mahomes or a Tom Brady, if you have a Sam Darnold or even a Brock Purdy, players just be like, all right, well, we're probably not going to be a dynasty. I want my money now. Now it's time for me to take care of my family. Whereas, like, you see Chiefs, like, players like, okay, I'll take I'll stay here because I got Pat. Like, we'll be fine. But, like, you see Seahawks players like, okay, now let's get my money. Like I did it. I accomplished it. You know, probably won't accomplish it again. Let's get my.
All right. Got a couple of super chats. BNA established 1988 says Jared Hayne jersey retirement game in Australia.
Dude,
LOL.
I thought he
Yeah.
was gonna be so good when he.
AK Roll 65 says, "Do you know what's under the substation? Do you know what's under the substation underground 2 substation? Yeah, there's more substation
Oh yeah, I
under
did
the
hear
ground.
about that. Yeah,
Yep. Baby Radiant says Niners need to clean house just like the Dolphins are doing.
they will never do that. That would mean Jed's admitting he failed, and he will not do that. I
But
don't think.
I mean, we
And if you're
can't.
keeping Kyle, Kyle would never.
If they don't keep Kyle, then they get rid of everyone else. Then yeah, they might have to.
Oh, for sure. If they lose
Mm.
Kyle, that automatically kicks off. You need to get rid of everyone. If they try and win with this roster with a different coach, they're brain dead.